The drive for cheaper and more secure means of making international payments continues to evolve as technology evolves. And the next stage in this may be somewhere in the cryptocurrency world. Now, the Committee on Payments and Market Infrastructure will investigate the case for cryptos that seek to maintain value against fiat further in the coming months. The Financial Stability Board, an international body tasked with monitoring the global financial system and supported by central banks and finance ministries worldwide, reported that global payment standard setters want to slash the cost of sending money abroad. And the vehicle they're looking to use is the stable coin. Victor Aluyi, Senior Vice President and Head Investments at Sankore Global Investment, joins me now to look at how this could change things. Victor, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. Stablecoin, it sounds a bit like it's different from cryptocurrency, but before we get into that, what's the normal process right now for sending money abroad that could be shortened, that is, and then also could be cheaper for the people who do it, especially immigrants, like African immigrants in the diaspora around the world?
I mean, you have a lot of IMTOs, international money transfer platforms, that enable people to do these cross-border money transfers, and that remains the bedrock, really, of these sort of international transfers that we continue to see increase and rise, as a matter of fact. So that essentially is the bedrock and the major platform through which people are able to move monies or send monies to other jurisdictions as it is right now.
All right, so stable coins are a type of cryptocurrencies, but there are a few things that seem to set them apart from the typical Bitcoin and Ethereum. So why are stable coins looking good for international payments?
Well, I think because it's largely also tied to fiat money. So stablecoins basically derive their value from some other assets. They are typically pegged to those assets. It can be a commodity, it can be a currency, it can be some financial instruments, So the value of that stablecoin is essentially derived from the value of that asset that the stablecoin is pegged to. So there is, if you will, realness, so to speak, for the stable coins. The challenge, however, is to ensure that those stable coins stay pegged. The conditions for which can become stringent, particularly when market situations become very, very volatile, the likes of which we've pretty much seen this year, where some stable coins have become sort of unhinged to their peg because of the sort of market volatility that we have seen this year. But I mean, in a nutshell, a stablecoin just basically derives its value from some other assets. It could be a commodity, it could be a financial instrument.
Okay, so one thing that the committee is particularly looking for is, as you said now, this derived value is a case for cryptos that seek to maintain value against fiat. So do you think there is a case for the stablecoin here? And just to break it down, we're hearing cryptocurrency, we're hearing stablecoin, we're hearing fiat, all this derived value. Make it as simple as possible for us.
Right. I mean, the whole idea is one of the concerns that people had expressed about crypto was the fact that where does it derive its value? What gives it its value? How do you essentially quantify what value it is? Although the market has pretty much been able to do that, what these people have done, taking a step further, is to create a situation where a known asset is then tied to cryptocurrencies, where that crypto then derives its value from. So that stable coin moves depending on the value of the underlying asset. And whoever it is that is, arranging that stable coin must ensure that they have enough resources to hold that peg. If they are unable to do that, then the peg kind of becomes distorted, and it can create, problems, for the stable coin.
So what we see now is that there's an opening for the stable coin, which is still a type of cryptocurrency, but countries and central banks are still taking quite a hard stance on cryptocurrencies themselves. And some have said that there seems to be a link between the rise of the stable coin as well as the rise of central bank digital currencies. Do you think there's a link to that? Do you think it's sort of the traditional players in the financial market trying to find a corner of the cryptocurrency world for themselves? What could it be?
Not a corner of the cryptocurrency world, but a corner of the digital currency or digital payment world. I think it really doesn't have much to do with the ascendancy of stable coins, really, that we've seen over the last 2 years thereabout. I think it's about, how payments itself is evolving and how technology is essentially upending that space. So you've seen, a number of central banks around the world also tilting towards those, CBDCs. The idea again is to create a platform through which, people can access those sort of virtual payments that is then backed by the might of the government of the country through its central bank. That's just the idea. I think central banks understand that the payment world is shifting, the tectonic plate of the payment world is shifting, and it is important that they are ahead of the curve or they are a part of it. So it's just in line with the whole digital payment move that you've seen, central banks looking the way of those CBDs. It's not necessarily a way to get into the crypto world, because even the crypto world itself essentially is enmeshed in all of the whole digital and virtual payments. So that's what central banks are trying to get a piece of, and that's the whole idea, really.
Okay, so let's look at something else that the committee said. And the committee said that it's considering whether and how the use of well-designed and risk-managed stablecoin arrangements could enhance cross-border payments by addressing existing frictions. This is also a committee that works with the financial stability body as well. Central banks are involved. Do you think we're getting to a point where central banks are on board with this? Because, of course, it is an investigation and probe they're looking at to see how things will play out. But do you think this also is an indicator that more central banks around the world are on board with this direction?
I mean, truth of the matter is that you ignore this trend as a central bank at your own peril. Things are evolving. You have to be involved in that conversation to see how things play in there. Remember, I mean, central banks, as we know it, are a creation that are not more than 100 years old. So things can evolve, and it is important that central banks are involved in that conversation as to how things are changing within payments, as to how things are changing within what you regard as general fiat money and what even derives or defines what you call value. So that's the reason I believe that central banks are involved. Whether this then gets on the ascendancy, particularly what we've seen with cryptos this year, really remains to be seen. A lot of work still needs to be done. I mean, we've seen the spectacular collapse of some stable coins, and just on the back of the kind of market volatility that we've seen this year. So obviously, a lot of risk management still needs to happen, because if you're tying these stable coins to a commodity, to a financial instrument, it simply means that if something blows up on the underlying asset, then the stable coin pretty much ceases to exist or has little or no value. So these are the areas that need to be looked at very properly to ensure that the proper risk management framework is put in place, and we don't have a contagion that then stems from an implosion of an underlying asset for stable coins.
Okay, so this probe, they said, is going to happen over the next few months. Victor, I'm going to ask you to look into that crystal ball. What do you think the investigation of the probe is going to come out with?
Well, I think it's just going to come out with recommendations that create a platform for even wider collaboration. It's important that the potentials really are, deeply explored to get a sense of the possibilities, that can happen with, using these stable coins, not just to only enhance payments, but to also grow financial inclusion on a global scale. So those are some of the things that I expect would come out as a result of these findings.
So now the news of the investigation into how stablecoins could possibly be the future of payments actually also comes while the Financial Stability Board and others are now looking to set the world's crypto rule book. And this would also include sharper norms for stable coins. Do you think it's time we've gotten here, or is it still too early in this crypto in the crypto playouts of things? They want to set a world crypto rulebook. But the whole point of cryptocurrencies is the decentralized, anonymous nature. A rulebook would just completely change that, or maybe not. What do you think?
Now, I think that it's important that we're here. I mean, we've seen how cryptos have played out this year. It's not been pretty. People have gotten burnt. So that whole decentralized nature, as good as it is, has its own downsides as well. I'm really have seen that play out and evolve this year, really. So I think that the ability to create a platform that ensures that there's some coordination, some form of centralization, if you will, it's important. Not the centralization that coerces people, but the centralization that ensures that there are values, that ensures that there are rules that everyone sticks with. You can't be out in the world where everybody does what they think is best, it won't work out well, just like we've seen in the crypto complex this year.
In line with that, because you've mentioned the sort of playouts of how things have happened with the cryptocurrency market this year about 2 times now. So if we're looking at this crypto rule book, what are the kind of things, the areas, the sections you think it would need to basically take cognizance of? What do you think we might be expecting? Because again, the beauty or the attraction for many people is that they don't need to be tied to their central banks. They don't need to be tied to the dollar. It's sort of this mass market that's able to set the value of these items. So with the rule book, I'm very cautious as to how even the crypto world itself would actually appreciate and accept that. What do you think could end up inside that agreed rule book?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still a lot of conversation to be had around that. It's still probably early days yet to get a sense of how that would be, but it is critical that we are here, and it is important that these conversations be had, so that the groundwork, the platform is properly laid. I think that is really, really critical. We can't do without that. In the absence of that, you then create a situation where these assets can rise on the back of speculation, and they will fall spectacularly because there are no fallbacks, no framework, no rules. It's pretty much the same thing that you have in financial markets, but there are strong regulators that ensure that even when things get bad, there is a comeback, so to speak. And it's important that for something like crypto that's it's increasingly proving important, those sort of fallbacks are created through concerted efforts and conversations, really.
All right, so my final question before I let you go, Victor, we've seen what has happened in the space this year. What do you think how things have happened with the cryptocurrencies this year has taught the financial world?
Well, I mean, for me personally, it's just basically taught us that you shouldn't speculate on an asset. It's important that an asset has underlying value that drives it. In the absence of that, really, it could just be down to the whim and the caprices of certain market players. Again, just like the popular saying goes, a rising tide lifts all boats. We've had a rising tide for the last 2 years. The tide has gone out, and now we see who's naked.
All right, so we'll leave it at that. All right, financial proverbs from the financial man for me today. Victor, thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks for having me.
All right.